I'm super intrigued by what you said about like after your incident, you had to think about what you were doing here.
Yeah.
And the second chance you may have been given.
Mm-hmm.
And you decided to leave DC and pursue something that you felt to be more meaningful, contributing towards like moving the world forward.
Yep.
A lot of people have these thoughts and they're like, oh, my job, I hate my job. I'm just a cog in the system. I don't feel like I'm having an impact. I'm not saying that was the case for you. I'm saying you took steps to have an impact and to feel like you're a part of a community and to feel like you're not taking advantage of the opportunities that you have. What was that process like where you said, okay, maybe my life is pretty good and I think it can be better and I think I can do more and.
Yeah.
What was that process like? And the reason I ask is if someone's listening and they're nodding along and saying, wow, this is hitting and this resonates.
Right.
I wonder like how he actually made that change. How did you make that change? Or what was the mental unpacking that you had to go through before you were actually ready?
After I regained consciousness out of my coma, it was a long road to recovery and I had a lot of time to reflect. And I remember after I was discharged from the hospital, my mom flew back with me to DC and she stayed with me for a few weeks, just, feeding me and taking care of me. Those days, I was spending 18 hours a day sleeping, maybe more. I would sleep for 12, 14 hours straight. And then I would wake up and I'd just be napping all day. But when I was awake, I remember just sitting on the couch, staring out the window and just looking at the clouds. And in other words, the only thing I could really do was reflect or think. And so, just having that space to think about my life, and it really became clear from being so close to death and realizing that, right? It's a very trite saying, but you never know if you'll be here tomorrow.
Right.
That really hit, it really resonated with me. And it just prompted me to reorient how I think about things in the future, right? I think I was always someone who is focused on planning ahead and, thinking about the long-term plan.
For the long run.
For the long run, exactly. Rather than, whatever you want to call it, rather than sort of focusing on the present or living in the moment. And so, I think I'm much better at that now. In order to get where you want to be in life, I think sometimes you do need to take that leap of faith, whatever it may be, and depart from the script or the plan that you already have in your head. And, sometimes it just needs to happen in the now without worrying about the long-term consequences, let's say. At the same time, making this transition wasn't easy. Even when I had made the decision to leave this corporate, whatever.
Probably being paid well.
Oh yeah, I was being paid, yes, I was being paid very well. And that was hard. That was also hard as well. But I think I'm trying to avoid ever having the golden handcuffs on.
Yep.
And so my lifestyle now is very different as a nonprofit lawyer. But as a lot of people say, what I value the most isn't necessarily the material things in life. It's the experiences and the memories. And, that's also partly why I love ultra running. And I love picking races where I get to see the world. And so I'm not one who likes to do the same race over and over again. With the limited opportunities that I have to race, if I'm only doing one or two big races a year and I'm already, 36, there's a few more several dozen more race opportunities that I'm going to have. And so I have to be, selective about what I'm doing with each one.
I find it fascinating when people pivot in this way. And to me, I feel stasis is the enemy. And anytime you're comfortable, you should be afraid because that's where bad things happen, in my opinion and in my experience. And whether it's in relationships, whether it's in work, whether it's in life in general, I think that when we get into these places where we feel too comfortable,
Yeah.
we get bored and lazy, and we're not doing as much as we can. And for some, that's totally fine. Like, that's how people choose to live their life. It's probably how 80% of America chooses to live its life, or 90%. And for the most part, maybe that's fine. But I do feel that the running community in particular should be afraid of stasis. We know how to set goals. We know how to get uncomfortable. And it's a cool opportunity for people to do impactful things and live their life in a way that isn't just sort of an even keel. And to me, it's the ebbs and flows that make things super interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe too interesting sometimes, but definitely interesting nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think people generally tend to think that I'm someone who always sees the glass as half full rather than half empty. And so I reflect on this experience on the four-pass loop. I wish it hadn't happened, but to some degree, I'm almost glad that it happened, at least in the way that it did, where I didn't have any long-term brain damage or
right.
I think, we'd be having a very different conversation if I had long-term brain damage. But the point is, you learn so much from those failures, right? This was just, like, maybe failure isn't the right word here, but the point is you learn from adversity, and it's the failures, it's the adversity that gets you out of that stasis, because up until then you're sort of on cruise control.
Right.
And when you have these really jarring life moments, you then have, everything that you thought was secure is no longer secure, and you sort of have to reorient and then reprioritize and reevaluate. And that process was so critical for me. And, I'm again grateful to have had that opportunity, even though it came with a lot of trauma, a lot of drama, and a lot of, tears. And, yes, I think my parents were under a lot of stress, and so was my then girlfriend and now wife. And I feel bad that, they had to worry about me for so many days. But yeah, all that being said, I'm grateful for having had that opportunity to learn from that really awful incident.